Great. All right. Good evening, everyone. I think we'll get started here at 5:45 p.m. right on time. That's because we were all here 30 minutes early. So I'll call to order the monthly council meeting for September 15th, 2025, starting with our planning board meeting here at 5:45 p.m. For members of planning board only, I'll call for a mover and a seconder for the planning board agenda as presented. Councillor Adams, second. Councillor Trenholm, all members of planning board in favor with the agenda as presented, please indicate by saying aye. Any opposed, changes, or revisions? Hearing none, we'll move forward. We begin each one of our evenings here at the City of Summerside for our council meetings by acknowledging that the land upon which we're gathered is unceded Mi'kmaq territory, and Ebikway is covered by the historic treaties of peace and friendship. We pay our respects to the Indigenous Mi'kmaq people who have occupied this island for over 12,000 years, past, present, and future. At this moment, I'll call for any member of planning board or member of council who is sitting in with planning board to advise myself as chair of any potential conflict of interest with respect to any items on the planning board agenda. Seeing and hearing none, we'll move right along to item 2, recommendation 415 Sherbrooke Road, and I will hand it over to the chair of planning board, Councillor Duran. Councillor.
Okay, thank you, Your Worship. Mobile sales establishment application for 415 Sherbrooke Road. The purpose of the application is to allow a mobile sales establishment, Hay Tandoori Grill, to operate at 415 Sherbrooke Road. The city has received an application from Jagtar Singh requesting approval to allow a mobile sales establishment, Hay Tandoori Grill, to operate at 415 Sherbrooke Road, PID number 70920, weather permitting. Mr. Singh's proposed hours of operation are 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. Monday through Sunday. The proposed location of the mobile sales establishment will be determined by the property owner and approved by staff. Mobile sales establishment means a business located in a motorized vehicle or movable structure that is towed or moved by a motorized vehicle, and where all of the goods, wares, or foodstuffs that are offered for sale are contained entirely within the motorized vehicle or movable structure, but does not include a lunch truck. Under Section 3 of the City of Summerside Licensing Bylaw, CS 21, the bylaw states the following. Section 13A, any person or company seeking a license to operate a mobile sales establishment in the city shall make application therefore to the council. B, licenses may be granted for a mobile sales establishment to conduct business on a maximum of 2 locations in the city, and each application shall be accompanied by a letter of permission from the owner or owners of the property on which the mobile sales establishment will be located. C, council shall allow or refuse the application based upon considerations of safety, desirability, impact on established businesses in the city, public convenience, and such other considerations as it deems appropriate. D, council may attach terms and conditions to the approval of the license if granted, including but not limited to hours and days of operation, health code requirements, litter control, or approved locations. E, the license for a mobile sales establishment shall be valid for the calendar year in which the application is made only. A new application is required to council for each calendar year. And F, no appeal shall lie from a decision of council respecting a mobile sales establishment license. Any staff comments? Mr. Singh has obtained a written letter of permission from the property owner, Lockhart's Auto Service Limited. Recommendation, staff support the city granting a mobile sales establishment license to the applicant, Jagtar Singh, as this property is zoned Service Commercial C2, which allows restaurants as a permitted use. The planning board recommendation, whether carried or defeated, will be brought forward for council for a final decision. And planning board recommendation, the application from Jagtar Singh to allow a mobile sales establishment, Hay Tandoori Grill, to operate at 415 Sherbrooke Road be recommended to be approved by council. Moved by myself, and I would ask for a seconder from planning board. Councillor Adams. Any questions or comments? Hearing none. All members of planning board in favor of recommending to council this application say aye. Aye. Opposed? Hearing none. That will go forward for a final decision, I believe, later on this evening. Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor Duran. So with that, we will adjourn our planning board meeting. We are now at 5:50 PM. So what I'm going to do is I am going to start our monthly council meeting 10 minutes early, but what I am going to do for members of the public, if they're joining on with us for 6 o'clock, we'll go through the initial stuff here that we have, our order of business, approval of minutes, accolades and recognitions, and then I'll make sure we don't get any further past item 7 before 6 o'clock. So if any member of the public's tuning in, the housekeeping matters are first, and then the matters of substance begin at item 7. If that's okay with council, we will move along. So with that, I'll call to order the monthly council meeting of September 15, 2025, here at 5:51 PM. I'll call for a mover and a seconder to move the agenda as presented. Councillor McColman, second. Councillor Duran. All in favor, changes or revisions? Seeing and hearing none, we'll continue as presented. Opportunity now for any member of council to declare a conflict of interest with respect to any item on the agenda before you. Seeing and hearing none, we'll move on to item 5, which is minutes. Before we do, I will note Councillor Morrison is in transit and traveling, so not with us here this evening. First, for members of planning board, I'm going to group the following minutes together. So I will call for a mover and a seconder from planning board to approve the following minutes. The minutes of the planning board, July 21st, 2025. The minutes of planning board, August 5th, 2025. And the minutes of planning board, September 2nd, 2025. Member of planning board, Councillor Duran, second. Councillor Trenholm. All members of planning board in favor of the minutes as presented, please indicate by saying aye. Any changes, revisions? Seeing and hearing none, the minutes are adopted. Next, for council, again, I will group the meeting minutes together and call for a mover and a seconder from council. Beginning with the in-camera minutes of July 21st, 2025, the monthly council meeting minutes of July 21st, 2025, the in-camera meeting minutes of August 5th, 2025, the committee of the whole meeting minutes of August 5th, 2025, the committee of the whole meeting minutes of September 2nd, 2025, and the minutes of the special council meeting of September 2nd, 2025. Motion from member of council, Councillor Snow, second. Councillor McColman. Any changes, revisions? Seeing and hearing none, I'll ask council to adopt the minutes by saying aye. And the minutes are adopted. Thank you, council. Move on now to item 6, which is accolades and recognitions. And as I noted, I'll open the floor to council at this time. Councillor Trenholm.
Sure, no, I appreciate that. Yeah, so I think there's 3 people I'd just like to recognize. 2 were involved in the Canada Games, and all of these people live in Summerside, so I was really impressed to see. So Keegan Waite, he set, and these are all provincial records, he set a 100-meter PEI record for the Special Olympics at the Canada Games. Really impressive. And Ryan Reed, who entered the Canada Games at 13 years of age, and one of the youngest competitors. He set 3 PEI records at the Canada Games. In swimming, 100-meter freestyle, 1,500-meter freestyle, and the 200-meter butterfly. And last is Charlie Rayner. Charlie Rayner, again, from Summerside, and I think she may be in grade 11. She won at Oyster Bed Bridge, the beginner division points champion. So I just wanted to say congratulations to all these individuals, and it's been a pretty fabulous time for the hitting first and setting PEI records. Pretty neat.
Thank you, Your Worship. I wanted to acknowledge attendance on behalf of the City of Summerside at the visitation and funeral for the Honourable Gail Shea, which was largely attended from many people from both sides of the aisle. And also, I attended on behalf of the city the visitation of our former councillor, John B. Perry, who passed away. So.
Thank you, Councillor McColman, and thank you, Councillor Trenholm. As I indicated, we are moving into item 7, which is a crime prevention presentation that will begin here in 6 minutes. So we are waiting for the presenter as well.
He's online.
Okay.
So just give me a minute.
Sure, we'll give him a minute.
Queued up, but if you guys are ready, we can
Yeah, we'll start at 6. What I can do there, Sandra, is I'll just start by reading his bio if you want to bring up the presentation there. And I can give a quick little background. I'm sure I can kill a couple of minutes for us. Okay, no problem. The crime prevention presentation here is going to be presented by, this would be Dr. Chris Giacomantonio, Assistant Professor at the Department of Sociology and Social Anthropology at Dalhousie University. I think Chris can hear me now, but Chris, we're killing a couple of minutes, so I'm going to read your bio, and that will take a few minutes. Chris has a doctorate in philosophy and criminology from the University of Oxford. Master's in Sociology from Dalhousie University, and a BA in Criminology from Simon Fraser University. Chris is a criminologist, a social policy researcher with over a decade of experience conducting research in Canada, the US, the UK, and the European Union. His academic research is focused on the organization, governance, and reform of public police in democratic societies, and he also conducts social policy and evaluation research on a wide range of topics, including criminal justice and security, harm reduction, health and social care, and social finance. Alongside his work at Dalhousie, Chris is a scientific advisor for Peers Lab, a nonprofit social innovation outpost based in Halifax. Prior to working with Peers Labs, Chris was the research coordinator for Halifax Regional Police, and before that led the policing research portfolio as a senior analyst at the RAND Corporation's European offices. Chris is currently, now I don't know what the date of this bio is, leading the 2-year SSHRC-funded research project examining governance and legitimacy in civilian-led crisis response services, and is interested in supervising graduate students with interests in alternatives to policing, police reform, and governance. Dr. Giacomantonio is presenting to us the findings of his research with respect to the crime prevention work that he has done for the city of Summerside. That work was made possible in part by the support and constructive input from our Summerside Police Services, members of our community, and was also helped, enabled with some financial support from the Minister of Justice, Minister Thompson, following a meeting we had approximately a year ago. So we're looking forward to the presentation, Chris, and as I understand, there will be a public presentation as well, a second one involving sort of a town hall, community hall discussion as part of Councillor Adams' Safer Communities, Safer Neighborhoods Committee. And so with that, I think we're close enough to 6 o'clock that I will hand it over to Sandra to hand it over to Chris. All right, over to you.
Hi there. Hi. So yeah, I guess I'll say a couple of things. One is that, you know, this presentation could go a while, and there's some points I can't see anyone, first off, so if people are sort of nodding or giving me signals, I have no vision on you. Sandra, do we have the share button? Am I able to? I can't seem to click share on my end. Still no. I could leave and come back, see if that changes things. Oh, there we go. Yeah, okay. All right. So let's see if I can make this work. Let's go presentation, session slides. All right. So, okay, I'm going to put this into presentation mode. Hopefully that doesn't make things go wild. Yeah. Okay, and Mr. Mayor, thanks for the introduction. That was pretty thorough. So I don't feel like I need to introduce myself any further. And if there are any prospective grad students listening at home or in the room, obviously, no, but so thanks for having me here. This presentation is sort of the culmination of a year or so of work with the city on a crime prevention needs assessment. I'm going to go over a lot of information, some of which may not be obvious in its meaning, and there's a lot of information crammed into these slides. So if at any point anyone feels the need to go back and review something during questions, by all means, feel free to bring it up. The main points I'm trying to make here are just the following. First, we did a crime prevention needs assessment, and we used two main data sources for that, which were available data, so data that had already been collected, and then some proactive discussions with some selected stakeholders from Summerside. And really, from those data sources, there was some broad consensus on some issues that the city has been facing. these are issues, I will reiterate at several points through the presentation that these are issues that the city knows about, the city is intending to act on, and in many cases is already taking actions on, which include increased police workload from non-crime issues, crime-related issues, especially related to drugs and multi-jurisdictional crime, and officer recruitment and retention issues. So through the exercises, the data review exercises, those were kind of the main themes. And I'm going to end the presentation with a handful of recommendations that I hope can reduce pressure on policing services. And really within the context of this crime prevention needs assessment, we tried to focus on things the city can do. So there are lots of things that other organizations will need to do to affect especially some of these non-crime issues that are putting pressure on police services, but we wanted to think about what is within the city's control. So I'll just try to foreground everything I'm saying with those messages, and then hopefully what I say over the next 20 or so slides will make sense. I will try to keep myself within about 20 minutes, and if at any point anyone feels the need to interrupt, please feel free to do so. So in the presentation, let's see, can I make this click? Within the presentation, I'll give some quick background on the project. I'll go through the data and what I found in my meetings with stakeholders, and then I'll get into the recommendations, which hopefully, from your perspective, will logically follow from the data that I present, and then we can have as long a discussion as you'd like within the context of your meeting and the amount of business you need to get to today. So the assessment was developed really to look at, as I said, things the municipality can do and also the policing need within the municipality. So looking at municipal service delivery and policing around crime and issues that are like crime, issues that police have to deal with, issues that bear on quality of life but may not necessarily meet the standard of a criminal issue, but still a major issue for the city. To do this review, I looked at data from the city itself, so data that's submitted to Statistics Canada for crime and policing within Summerside, as well as data held within the police's records management system, as well as meetings and interviews with local stakeholders. That resulted in a report, which I submitted in July, and then obviously this presentation as the culmination of that work. I'll jump right into the data and try to explain it as well as I can. There's some kind of arcane details about what is in police data. So for those among you who are familiar with police data, this will make a lot of sense. For those who aren't, I'm happy to explain details explain this in further detail as needed. What I did was I created a data set using Statistics Canada data for a 20-year period, looking at jurisdictions that were, as much as we can say, like Summerside. So somewhere between 5,000 and 50,000 people. So smaller cities and municipalities, municipal police services in Canada. And I tried to create kind of comparisons to see where does Summerside sit within its kind of policing, police workload, police staffing, and what are the results of that? And so I looked at looking at each region in Canada, so from west to east, how does Summerside stack up to other similar police services if we average it out over the last 20 or so years? And over that period, Summerside had a relatively high crime rate, relatively high number of police reported crimes per officer. So officer workload is pretty high relative to other similar jurisdictions over that period. So almost, over 44% higher than the average jurisdiction over that period, and had slightly lower staffing. So a high workload and lower staffing than other Canadian comparators. And this is coupled with a lower, what we call a clearance rate, which is the number of crimes that have been sort of satisfactorily resolved. So it could be resolved by arrest or resolved through other means. So a lower clearance rate, a lower number of total workload that has been satisfactorily resolved with a much higher workload, which kind of makes sense. And a lot of research on police tends to suggest that high workload will lead to lower number of events being cleared. So this is just a visualization of that with Summerside in the black with the yellow outline in these graphs. So we can see on the left, much higher workload per officer than almost every region other than the prairies, and a lower clearance rate than most other regions, around comparable to BC, but lower than most other regions in the country. If we take that and only look at the Atlantic region, so again, looking at 5,000 to 50,000 person municipalities, We see, again, Summerside didn't compare particularly favorably in terms of staffing and workload, with a very high workload, over 50% more crimes per officer, lower police per capita ratio, and lower weighted clearance rate than other services within the Atlantic region. So if we average all of those services out for that 20-year period, and again, this is just a quick visualization of that. Now, again, this is because of the time I was doing this analysis. The data only went up to 2022. The full data set for 2023 hadn't been released by Statistics Canada. And I know that recently Summerside has added new police officers. So if we take that into account here, we would see that in 2024, after the new hires and the new authorized strength of 38, we're at around 207 officers per 100,000. So that's above the 189.7 average for that period, but still below the regional average in Atlantic Canada, and right around the national average for policing per capita in smaller cities, so in 5,000 to 50,000 person cities. When we move from the Canadian data into the local data, so there's data that's submitted to Statistics Canada, which only deals with crime. And then there is data that is held by the police services that includes the crime data, but also information on events that the police attend that aren't criminal in nature. So this can be anything from provincial and regulatory issues to traffic issues to simply being called to help out with something that may not be a crime, but maybe something where the police need to help out in some way. And what we see in this data, if we look at the trend from about 2014 to 2023, we see a really substantial increase in non-crime events. So about a 40% increase from 2022 to 2023, which in part was driven by an increase in traffic events because the city hired new traffic officers. So that's not an actual increase in like bad driving or anything. It's just an increase in enforcement. But then we see a big increase again, about a 25% increase in non-crime events. So we call these 8,000 code events because within the record system, there are events that have a code that starts with the number 8. But these are things that are not crime. They're not provincial violations, but they still require police attention. And on the next slide, we can start to visualize that. So if you look at this, and I apologize, not all the colors may be obviously distinguishable, but the line at the top is these internal 8,000 code events, these non-crime, non-regulation, non-violation events that require the police to attend. And all other kinds of crimes and provincial violations were up and down, but more or less flat over this period. But the non-crime events really cranked up around 2022. So from 2021 to 2022, we see an increase from just over 2,400 to almost 2,700 of these events within the data set. And that was the highest number of any year within the 10-year period until 2023, which we then see a much larger increase from around 2,700 to over 3,500 of these events. So we see a substantial increase year on year from 2022 to 2023. And so to explain that, we take a look at the kind of events that are within this code. So not all 8,000 code events are the same. So I did a breakdown of those events, and the main drivers of the increase year over year were 4 codes: Assist General Public, Suspicious Person, Wellbeing Check, and Mental Health Act, which are all related to homelessness and mental health within Summerside. So these are events related to encampments, to people who are acutely unwell, not receiving care, living, often on the street. And they were major drivers of these events, especially in the post-COVID period, 2021 to 2023. And again, to visualize that, if we look at 2023, here are those codes making up about over 50% of all of the non-crime, non-provincial violation calls that the police received in that year, all the events that they went to. And in 2014, here we are under a quarter of the total proportion of those calls in 2014. So hopefully that makes clear, I think we have a very clear picture of an increase in non-crime events and to a police service that was already relatively low staffed with a relatively high workload. So that's the broad picture I take out of the review of the data. And from that, I then went to discuss with local stakeholders, both to make sense of this data, to make sure it wasn't hiding some obvious explanation for these changes that I'd been missing, and to understand if there were other issues that were important that might not be obvious from the data. And so I met with 10 local stakeholders who were nominated to me by my partners at the city, and asked them about top of mind crime and policing issues, what they thought the city was doing well, where they thought the city could improve, and again, really trying to focus on what the city of Summerside can do, not to drag these conversations into what needs to be done, for example, at the provincial level or the federal level, but really what can the city do, and what's it already doing well. And so we had, I think, productive discussions over winter and spring 2025, and really, there were three main issues that continued to crop up in these discussions. In all discussions, and probably by far the highest top line issue has to do with homelessness, mental health, and addictions, but also for the policing partners that I spoke with, discussions about multi-jurisdictional crime and officer retention were also important. And so I'll try to explain what they said, try to summarize what these stakeholders had to say over the next few slides. So really getting into homelessness, mental health, and addictions. First, as I said earlier, the city and the province are doing lots of things to try to address these issues. There have been several new initiatives over the past few years, emergency housing, services for youth, the new crisis response team, addiction treatment services, etc. And so these are known issues. And people broadly agreed that these are not issues that the police are going to solve on their own. So these are issues that require multi-service partnerships across community, provincial, and municipal levels. And everyone acknowledged, broadly speaking, that the municipality isn't going to be able to fund its way out of these issues directly. There are limited resources. We could always imagine expansions to these services, but that wasn't where they wanted to focus their attention. And so we naturally came to discuss collaboration, how that works between these multiple levels of services. And people emphasized that they had really good personal relationships with all agencies. So people knew who to call. So if someone was working for a provincial service, they knew who to call at the police. If someone was working for the police, they knew who to call in community and so on. So they can get in touch with people when something comes up where they think they need to connect. So if something has reached a crisis proportion, within a local issue, they can connect with one another on an as-needed basis. But what I did find in these discussions was people would also say, we met more previously and don't meet as often as we used to, or we intended to meet more regularly, and then other things came up. And so what I found with these discussions is that people would characterize these relationships as good. People could always be contacted, but they weren't structured. So they didn't have kind of a formal basis on which to go forward, which led to relationships kind of fading and then reemerging on an as-needed basis. So that was kind of what I thought was a core and interesting finding, which will lead again to some discussion in the recommendations. Regarding multi-jurisdictional crime issues, broadly speaking, what I found was people saw the Summerside Police Service as a good and willing policing partner that had regularly given resources to multi-jurisdictional partnerships such as the Joint Force Operation Street Level Drug Team and the Mid-Level Drug Trafficking Joint Enforcement Team, and that the Summerside Police Service was seen by all partners as kind of eager and willing to support other police services, to work with RCMP, to work with other municipal services as needed. They didn't have a lot of information, so these discussions didn't have a lot of information on the successes of these teams, and that's in part because a lot of them are new. So in particular, the Joint Enforcement Team, which is going to focus on mid-level drug trafficking, was seen as promising, but it's also seen as something that needs time to develop. So these are, again, very much perspectives on things. We don't have hard data on the activities of these operations or what impact they're having, but very much the perspective that these are complex multi-jurisdictional issues that impact Summerside and need complex multi-jurisdictional responses, in which Summerside has been a good partner. Finally, in relation to police service staffing and delivery, so in this context where we have sort of an increasingly complex municipal environment, where we've had a growing population, increased use of joint enforcement or increased participation in joint enforcement work. The Summerside Police Service has had some challenges recently in retaining officers, and that makes it hard to staff both the joint enforcement work and to deal with the increase in non-crime work that the city has seen. These are common challenges for police services of this size because they can't provide the same training and career growth opportunities. And I think the service's broad perspective on this is that their best bet is to focus on those officers who want to make Summerside their home community and think working in a smaller city like Summerside is the best place to work. And so they have developed a program with the Atlantic Police Academy to nominate recruit officers who want to grow their career in Summerside, recognizing the potential limits to career growth and advancement. But it also seems that there are some opportunities within this changing local context and this increased use of joint operations that can provide opportunities to improve retention in the future. And so I'll talk a bit about that when I get to these recommendations. So all of that data, and again, I can get into detail if some of it wasn't clear what I was talking about, because we are trying to work through this presentation. Hopefully, if that all makes sense, then the recommendations will also make sense and seem reasonable as steps for the municipality to take, and recognizing that there are lots of ways to potentially get to where these recommendations are aiming. So there's an underlying goal for each recommendation, and I'd like you to all think about that as we talk about those. So what I'm proposing could be a way of getting there, but ultimately the goal of making some doable improvements that are within the city's control, I think is the main message I would like you to take away from the upcoming recommendations if you haven't had a chance to review them. The first recommendation, and this really comes from what was that top of mind issue for everyone, which had to do with mental health, homelessness, and addictions in the city, and how the city can better respond to that, knowing that it's not an issue that's going to be solved just by policing. As I said before, I found that people knew there were lots of services. People were supportive of the city's attention to this, of the community service providers' attention to this, of the province's attention to this, but that coordination was not structured. And in other municipalities where they've sought to develop more structured coordination, they've established a thing called a center of responsibility. And so the city can build a structure, and ideally, I would say, a staffed position whose core role is to support coordination between the many services that are out there. And this could include both strategic work and programmatic work. So this could include work to coordinate and collaborate between services, and also potentially to fill gaps through navigation and case management. So I think the development of a role within the city that provides expertise to the city on how to do crime prevention, on how to react to non-crime issues that draw away police attention would be valuable. And it's something that's been done in other places, and I won't go into detail about those, but there are resources through Public Safety Canada. This kind of model tends to sit alongside the situation table model, and I know there's a situation table model already in place on the island. So this is, if we think about the situation table as more the action-oriented group that deals with specific issues, the center of responsibility is more proactive in dealing with strategic understanding systemic issues and how to engage proactively with issues that haven't quite gotten to the level of being at a situation table. Beyond that recommendation, so I'd say that's the sort of most high-level recommendation that seems to matter is improving coordination that will hopefully ultimately take pressure off frontline responses by ensuring that other services are able to engage with people who may come to police attention if they aren't receiving the care they need. Beyond that, this next recommendation may seem like a bit of a non-recommendation, which is that Summerside Police should continue to maintain its partnership work. And that may seem like a non-recommendation, but in a context of limited resources, and as I said before, the municipality has had challenges fully staffing the service, it may come to a point of discussion as to whether supporting external agencies is to the benefit of the agency, which really has as its core the municipal service delivery. But ultimately, I think from the discussions I had, those partnerships seem to be drawing benefit both to the police service in terms of its ability to deal with multi-jurisdictional issues, as well as providing new experiences for police officers. And really, in the nature of these issues, like multi-jurisdictional drug trafficking, you can't deal with that issue without engaging in partnership work. So the partnerships seem to be worth maintaining even in a context of limited resources. And then finally, I think the police service, and again, there are probably multiple ways to get there, but could establish something like a problem-solving team. And this would do several things that deal with all of the issues that came up in the needs assessment. So first, the mid-level problem-solving team would help deal with systemic issues that may not rise to the level of major crime, but may be patterned, may be related to the kinds of quality of life, mental health, homelessness, and addictions issues that the city are seeing, and it may be able to work productively with a center of responsibility. This would also provide development opportunities for officers, which could potentially support officer retention. But I do recognize that this kind of thing, so drawing people out of day-to-day patrol and into kind of a problem-solving team, which might have different working hours, might not respond to calls, would only probably be possible once the police service was fully staffed. I think I can stop there. This is just a summary of the recommendations, and I'm essentially ready to go into a discussion if people have questions. Again, happy to revisit any points that I may have rushed over or not made clear enough verbally. So yeah, I can stop there. I hope that was useful. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you, Chris. I know you can't see us, so I will let you know if we have questions here. Any questions from members of council with respect to the presentation? Councillor Trenholm?
Sure, thank you. I guess just reviewing if I'm breaking the 1,972 last year incidents, quick math, that's like 5.5 incidents a day. That really we're saying is not police work, right? And if the center of responsibility is, I guess if the goal is to have a coordinator to take the pressure off the police, is that along the lines of if it comes to this individual and they can refer somewhere else or they can identify their appropriate avenue, is that correct?
Yeah, so I wouldn't imagine that so some of that is not crime, but it would be police work because the person, in some instances at least, not all instances, but like if someone calls for a suspicious person, for example, that may be a thing where police need to be deployed first to find out what the nature of the issue is. So it may be that you may be able to reduce the total number by a proportion, but not the whole thing. But yes, that's essentially the idea, that you would have a person who may have some case management responsibility or potentially just be a kind of a navigator to help people access the services that are appropriate to them. There may be some outreach capacity. Again, there's lots of ways to design this and lots of examples across the country of people who do this work. So depending on how strategic versus programmatic you want to balance that person's job, ideally, they'd be able to identify people in situations before they might come to the attention of police, or when a call is made about them and someone knows who they are, that it could go through this kind of structure as an alternative response.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. And when you mentioned outreach, so this role is, I guess, fluid, like in terms of what we would see as the need. And certainly if you're looking at some type of outreach in the community, that seems to be, I guess, a trend in terms of that, because if we can be preventive and understand before they come to police attention, if we can provide that support, that seems to be an opportunity there maybe to work in outreach, because in other communities have, if it's a community outreach worker or that kind of thing, or a team of individuals. So do you have any feedback for us as a council in the city in terms of that outreach model? Just a brief.
Yeah. No, it's a great question.
Yeah.
I mean, my main area of research outside of in general, is these new models of kind of alternative response. I mean, I think if you look at the well-being check as a subset of those 8,000 code calls, that's the ideal outreach worker thing that, you could take that idea, almost entirely off of police officers' jobs and into a team like that. In terms of what's the best model, I mean, there are municipally funded, arm's length, community driven versions. There are municipally funded, municipally staffed versions. There are part volunteer versions. There are, it really depends. And without, trying to engage a kind of a cost or budgeting discussion, it starts with how much do you think you can, sort of financially support a thing like this, and then build to that size. There are small versions and big versions out there. So if it's small, you're probably coordinating and referring. If it's bigger, you might have social worker in-house or two. You might have people who are with a van who can transport people in need, that kind of thing. So it really can be scaled. It can start small and build, but Halifax is in the process of building that kind of team right now. And they'll be, Halifax sized, but so there's a lot of ways to do this, but I think whatever size you can think you can start at is a better size than not having it, if you know what I mean.
All right, well, thank you, Chris, and I want to say I'm a data person, so I really appreciate the thoroughness of the report and the data. It's really helpful in making a decision and having just an informed look at it. But I'll pass it over to my other fellow councillors for any comments. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions there from council? Chris, I just have one question then, one, thank you for the work that you've done. I know that you've worked closely with our police department, and we do have Chief Black here as well today, who's he's sitting in one of the councillor seats. So I thought, oh, what an honor we have. We got some additional expertise. We do have Chief with us here today, and I know the two of you have worked closely together, and thanks to our police department and all the officers who worked with you over the course of the last year. Overall, I think the data that you have presented to us as a third party for the city of Summerside confirmed a lot of the things that we see and we know in our community, and we see and we hear from our police services. It is really important, though, for all of us to make sure that what we see and what we hear is confirmed in the numbers, and as tough as that can be from time to time. So thank you to you as well for the work that you've done, and what at least I feel are really solid, interesting recommendations for our police department to consider. And certainly it helps us as well highlight that a number of the issues that are affecting our community are outside the scope and control of our responsibility or even capability as a municipality, particularly as they relate to cost of living induced homelessness, addictions and mental health supports, or lack thereof. But I have a higher level question maybe, and I may have asked this before, but it seems to me that and just correct me if you think this is wrong, but it seems to me that our police services may need, one, more police officers, but two, more non-police officers supporting our police services. And I'm wondering if you're seeing that as a trend elsewhere, because ultimately I think our police department isn't just there to enforce crimes enumerated in the criminal code, but to make sure that we have a safe community. And as our chief would say, if people don't feel safe, then they're not safe. So I wonder if you're seeing this across the country in terms of looking for broader responses that also bring in other levels of expertise into police departments to help take the pressure off police and then help address some of these social issues.
Yeah, so and to the other councilor's question earlier, I think there's, so the models that are available here, and there's no, where the current state of research is not, is determining which model is better. So there's an argument for developing parallel services, so not held within police, but rather kind of, separate but in coordination with. So if we look at the lots of jurisdictions where you have a separate service that provides sort of mental health outreach, etc., but is still dispatched through the same dispatch service. There are places where this has become part of the police architecture, and again, a lot of that is going to depend on what you have in place, how your overall municipality is structured. So if you have, which arm of the municipality has the capacity to, dispatch humans, to develop policy, to, have technology, to have vehicles, that kind of thing. So in a lot of places that is the police or it's the fire department, and in other places they develop them as standalone. In terms of things like having, civilian analysts and that kind of thing who are helping to look at this data, who are maybe becoming, developing expertise in upstream crime prevention. Again, there are models within police services and models outside of police services, and they're all, I think, steps in the right direction, which is that, everyone acknowledges these aren't issues that you can get at through the criminal code, and they're not issues you can get at through police powers very effectively. So where you house that set of services, there's a world of available models out there, and depending on which you think would work for you, that then would kick off some steps of, you probably want to go talk to them and see what they learned early as they tried to develop this model, where they think their gaps are, and can you get around that? Because how you do this model, and as you'll know, in a smaller city, will be very different than the kind of more well-traveled, more well-known models that exist in bigger cities. So I think doing, bringing resources within the police to add this capacity, or bringing it within the broader municipal kind of service structure, that would be a choice that is, it's kind of fine either way.
Great,
That
thank you.
help
Yeah.
answer your question? Is that
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's really helpful.
Cool.
Any other further questions, comments? Seeing and hearing none, thank you, Chris, for your time, for your work. I understand you'll be in the city, I think it's the 15th, is it, Councillor Adams, of October, as part of our Safer Communities Neighborhoods Committee presentation. So look forward to hopefully seeing you then, and thanks again for joining us.
Yeah, looking forward to it. Thanks for having me. Good luck with the rest of your meeting.
Thank you. All right, thanks, Council. We'll now move on to 7B, which is a half update presentation from our planner, Megan Williams. Megan, welcome back. And Director Aaron McDonald. You're just not listed on the program there, Aaron, but it wouldn't be a council meeting without you here. I'll hand it over to the both of you.
Good evening, Your Worship and Council. Back again to treat you with some more position papers on the Housing Accelerator Fund. So today, what I'll do is I'll start with the position papers that you received last council meeting on the CMHC design guidelines, and then I'll go over the position papers for density bonusing and the mixed-use, multi-unit, and missing middle design guidelines. Okay. So council received 3 documents regarding the CMHC design catalog last council meeting. We reviewed what's in the CMHC design catalog, how they can be used by staff and builders, and the potential impact to our operations. So I do have to make a significant clarification. Rather than council adopting the CMHC design catalog for developers to use the drawings, we're asking council to consider the massing, orientation, and general structure of the buildings that are in the catalog. We would like to include them in the design guidelines as examples of well-designed infill to help explain the intent of the design guidelines to builders and developers. So I'm just going to go through a couple of examples from the catalog. So on the screen, I've got one of the ADUs. which is an accessory dwelling unit. So some of the design elements that you can see here would include the peaked roof. So the ADU is this fella in the back here. So there's the peaked roof. So that peaked roof matches the main dwelling and a couple of the other buildings on the street. The orientation of the building, so the front of it is facing forward. This helps protect the privacy of the adjacent parcels there. So those are just a couple of design guidelines, as well as like a couple of trees that they have in the yard. And this is one of the fourplex designs from the guidelines that I thought was pretty interesting. So some of the design elements they've included in here are, again, the peaked roofs. This one, they've kept the building to be about a similar height to the adjacent properties. It follows the same setbacks as the adjacent properties as well. You can see in the back portion that there's minimal windows facing the neighbor here, so that kind of helps protect their privacy. This side has a tree to kind of help protect that privacy too. And then, of course, all of the entrances for the housing units are facing forward. So those are just some examples of the design and like the massing of the building, the orientation and whatnot that kind of we'd be looking to integrate into the design guidelines. Okay, so the first position paper is the density bonus. So the density bonusing is a tool meant to provide benefits to both the municipality, its residents, and developers. Density bonusing works through the developer providing public benefits that contribute to community amenities and livability in exchange for bonus development rights, such as increased building height or increased lot coverage. So how can we use it here in Summerside? In our official plan and our zoning bylaw, there are provisions that allow for bonus height to buildings. So for example, from 6-story maximum to a 10-story maximum, subject to council approval. The proposed density bonus guidelines would outline requirements the developer must meet so that they can approve for those additional stories. So the types of community amenities the developer could provide are varied and include affordable housing units, the installation of public art, or the preservation of heritage resources. WE6 has identified that density bonus could apply in the R4 zone and the connector nodes number 1. So while the downtown zones do allow for increased height, they've already have regulations outlining the amenities a developer can provide in order to qualify. Therefore, it's not recommended to include the downtown zones in this density bonus program. And then to manage expectations, staff isn't expecting the density bonus guidelines to really take off in Summerside. It's a tool that's only really seen success in larger cities like Toronto and Vancouver. Saying that, it is beneficial to have requirements around what could qualify a development for those additional stories. Before I move forward to the design guidelines, are there any questions on density bonus? Perfect. Oh,
Sorry, we don't have that presentation in our package, right? We just have this.
no, I just finished it.
Okay, no,
like 2
no.
hours ago.
Okay, all right. Well, I just, is my only question, I know this says 4 to 6 stories in this, and then I'm seeing 6 to 10 in that, so I'm just, you'll probably get to it.
Maybe. It's just an example. It would be pulled from, or like our bylaw has the allowance for higher stories depending on which
Oh,
section
sure.
it is.
Yes.
Yeah. So it will follow that. Like
Okay,
we
sure.
won't allow additional stories on top of what's already permitted in the zoning bylaw, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, yeah.
Perfect. Cool.
You had a slide up there with the 3 units on it, 3 different,
That one?
yeah, that one there. So all of those units are the same setback, right?
Yep.
So does that apply the same thing to 4 units as a right on any lot?
The 4 units as of right, they'd have to follow the setbacks depending on what the zone is. So yes.
Yeah, but the setbacks in that house on the far side, those setbacks have changed
Since. Yeah.
since. So instead of a 40-foot frontage, you now have 18. So is that allowed? in the middle of the street?
In the middle of the street?
I think the question is, are you requiring infills to match the existing setbacks and not match what's allowed in the zone?
Yeah,
Right.
okay, okay. That, it could be a requirement within the guidelines, that in order to get, either like a variance or, the extra height, that building will have to meet the setbacks of the buildings on the street. If they aren't looking for, the density bonus, then they'd be able to meet the setbacks that are permitted within that zone. If that makes sense.
Not really, but continue on.
Okay. It might come together a little bit with the next piece. And then I'll make a note to clarify it the next time I come in. Okie dokie. So the next two position papers are pretty similar. So what I've done is I've just kind of compiled them into the one slide. A couple of definitions to make sure that we're all working on the same page. Missing middle is a residential building that is more than one dwelling unit, but is 4 stories or less. And while it typically includes accessory dwelling units, because there is a separate Housing Accelerator Fund initiative that speaks to guidelines for ADUs, the ADUs won't be included in the missing middle design guidelines. Multi-unit buildings are residential buildings that are 5 stories or more, and mixed use is the more common term, but in our zoning bylaw, we refer to them as commercial residential buildings, which we define as a building containing a mix of commercial, institutional, and residential uses, where the commercial or institutional uses occupy the ground floor at street level. So preparing a series of design guidelines is another initiative under the CMHC Housing Accelerator Fund. And so the design guidelines are a series of lot and building design elements for specific types of housing developments. Builders or developers will be required to adopt some of these elements into their proposal. The intent is to ensure new buildings integrate well into the surrounding area. For missing middle, the design guideline will support gentle densification, which is the practice of adding more housing units into a community in a way that the new building is respectful of the existing buildings in the neighborhood. And then for mixed use or multi-unit buildings, the design guidelines will encourage specific design elements for new construction to blend and integrate the buildings into the community. With help from Weave 6, we're proposing to like a kind of choose your own adventure style design guideline, where lot and building elements are listed, and the builder or developer can choose which elements they'd like to include in their building or development application. So this might help answer your question, Councillor Bruce. In addition to this, staff are proposing that we think of the design guidelines as a pilot project throughout the remainder of the half period. We're proposing the guidelines applied to discretionary use and or major variance requests for these specific housing types. This will ease the local builders and the developers into the more stringent development requirements, and the decision in these specific cases will rest with council. And at the end of the half period, council can revisit the design guidelines if they so wish. So that kind of skirted around, I think, what the question was you were asking. Does that help clarify it a little bit more? Yeah. Perfect. Awesome. Okay. So if council is ready to provide direction on the density bonus guidelines and the design guidelines, I'll happily take it. If not, I will be coming back to council on October 7th for that direction. So in the meantime, questions I would like you folks to consider to prepare yourself for the 7th are, do I support the proposed direction for the density bonus guidelines? Do I support the proposed direction for the design guidelines? Are there any glaring holes in the proposed list of site and building design elements that need to be covered? And then if you don't support any of the proposed directions, I'll ask that you come prepared with alternatives for discussion. As noted in the last meeting, we have very, very little time to work with the remainder of the HAF initiatives to complete. And there's substantial work that will need to get done into the documents between when council gives direction and when they're adopted. So just for clarification, on the 7th, I'm not going to be bringing the final documents. I'm just going to be asking for direction. And that's it. Thank you.
Yes. the very first slide that you had, it was a definition, the position paper for the density bonus, but it's not in our packet.
The
It
very
just
first slide.
gave a description of who would apply for that density bonusing.
Oh, I see.
The developer, the municipality, there was 3, I think, listed.
So the folks that would apply for a density bonus would be builders or developers, really. The benefits from the density bonus is meant to be for the residents, for the community.
The density.
Correct.
So is there any way we could get
Yep.
that, a copy of that, so that it's clear in our mind? Just so that if we're making decisions, like, I can read that, but I'd like to have it so that I can
Yes.
hang on to that.
Yeah, I'll send it around. Yeah, of course.
So there's no public input into this, right? This is our public meeting tonight, but I don't imagine everybody in the neighborhood would read what we
No.
what we have here, so.
Yeah, and that's why we're proposing it as a pilot project, just because we don't have the time to really get that public engagement that we want or need than we would usually put into a public document like this.
Okay.
And the reason why we don't have time is because of a deadline on the funding.
We have essentially until the end of the year to complete the remainder of the initiatives. We've been given these deadlines. Is it December is our, what's the word for? Yeah, so we submit an annual report to CMHC, and we have, so yes, we have to meet these initiatives by the end of it in order to receive the next batch of our funding.
Sure, yeah, I guess just trying to, when we look at what guidelines we're coming back, so for this, what we received in our package where it says select 1, and then select 2, is that what will be coming back for council for us to approve? Or does council not approve, is this a staff, is that meant for staff to select 1 and select 2, or is it for council?
The developer would.
Oh, thank you, yeah.
I think the select two, that's, as Megan was, I forget her terminology, is developers were to get some of these items, if they're, I think they said to consider them for discretionary uses or major variance. It was allowing the developer to say, here's some potential building elements or lot elements. The developer try and incorporate 1 or 2 of these things where it's noted 1 or 2. It's for the developer to incorporate 1 or 2 of these initiatives into their design.
Okay.
For considering.
Okay, I really misunderstood that, so,
Yeah.
okay, so this is, so yeah, I can see
So the top one
the
was.
essential elements are obvious, those
Yeah,
have to
they're-
be done.
and then down below
And then
that,
it's
it's like-
the developer's choice of what to approve.
Right, so pick one
Okay,
element.
all right,
one of the lo-
that really helps
One
clarify.
from the left-hand side and 2 from the right-hand side from there below for the next category.
Perfect, yeah, no, thank you, that helps a lot, thank you.
So just to clarify, for the 7th, if you can get that out well in advance to council, that ideally merges the presentation here with the information that's in here and makes it as clear as possible for all of council to know what it is exactly we're looking to recommend. And then if the proposal is a pilot for some pieces of it, it would also be helpful for council to know what the timeline would be for that pilot project or how that thing works. Those usually have a start and an end date and a period of time before we move on to a final adoption. Councilor McDougall?
Yeah, just a thought, if we could do a post out to the public that we are discussing this at a council meeting and invite anybody to come, because we went through a turbulent time doing this, and now for us to just sign off on these and move ahead without having any more public input, I think we need to let the people know what we're doing, and I'm sure that they didn't read what we read over the weekend, so thanks.
Yeah, for sure.
I completely agree. I think that would be a good idea. Just like I just got Megan and Linda to help with the girl who was just, had come to ask some questions too, and she was wondering if, you know, she could get information and could they ask questions on it, so I think people are, you know, curious and want clarification on some things, so.
And I know that you've done a lot of work on it, and we appreciate that, but I think where we're coming from is we have to be the voice
Yeah.
of the residents, and if they have questions and we're not clear on it, and we're working towards a deadline, but they don't know it's a deadline, like, we're going to get pushed back. So I'd rather deal with that so that the
Yeah.
residents would know.
Yeah,
Thank
that's
you.
fair.
And then just so I'm clear here, the question for us will be considering what these lot elements and building elements are as set out in the package. Those will be, which are essential and which would be additional. And a lot of them are great, right? Like distinct driveways from main units, accessible features, or lighting, requirements to have front porches, all that kind of stuff. So the stuff in here looks really positive, so, but yeah, again, if it can be clear as to what we're gonna need to check off on and not check off on, then we can focus on those, because a lot of the lot elements and building elements, like when I went through it, I initially just thought, well, it'd be great to have all of those things for anywhere, but, and some of them, it's nice to see that are included in terms of managing even waste receptacles in a way that, for any units here, for like the 8 units, fenced in, I think is really positive, so as long as that can be really clear and we can focus on that and
Super.
get down to it, that'd be great.
Perfect.
Anything else? Alrighty, we will see you on the 7th.
No,
Thanks,
thank
Megan.
you.
All right, moving on to item 8, appointment to committees. We have one resolution for the Seniors Engagement and Equity Directive, public appointments. Councillor Trenholm, I can hand it over to you to read in the resolution if you wish.
Sounds great, yeah. Resolution COS 25-099. It's moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Durand. It's whereas the Seniors Engagement and Equity Directive, known as SEED, seeks to serve as a fact-finding and advisory capacity, providing recommendations to the City of Summerside Council on the needs of seniors in the city, in Summerside. And whereas the committee accepted applications for community member positions, be it resolved that Donna Bell, Mary Jo Bernard, Bev Cornish, Catherine Goody, Peter Holman, Glenna Lois, Anna McDonald, and Debbie McCrae be appointed to the SEED committee.
Thank you, Councillor. Who was the second on that?
It was Councillor Durand.
Durand, okay, great. Resolution COS 25-099, moved by Councillor Trenholm, seconded by Councillor Durand, on the floor. Any further comments, questions, members of council? Seeing and hearing none, we're working under our new policy. All in favor of the resolution, please indicate by saying aye. Opposed, changes, revisions, seeing none. The resolution's carried. Thank you, Councillor, and good luck with the work of the committee. With that, we'll move on to item 9, introduction and reading of bylaws and resolutions. So hand it over to Chair Planning Board first for 9A.
Your worship, while they're getting set up, can I just, one thing, and I was waiting on a name when we were doing the accolades and recognitions, and I didn't want to miss anybody, so that's why I didn't want to say anything. I wanted to make sure one name was correct. I just wanted to, a shout out to all the girls on the first ever U18 female varsity tackle football team on PEI. But especially to our girls from Summerside. We have Carol Ann Sampson, Mila Mahar, Laura Costain, Helen Wynn, and Lexi McDonald. And it was their first ever game the other night, and they beat Moncton 31-19. So, yeah, congratulations to them.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Ron.
Okay, thank you, Your Worship. And you know what? While we're there, Tracy's here. Tracy's son Campbell was just sniped by Memorial for rugby over there in Newfoundland too, so he's a Summerside lad. Resolution COS 25-094, moved by myself and seconded by Deputy Mayor Snow. Whereas the zoning bylaw amendment was initiated by the city of Summerside to conduct a series of housekeeping amendments to Schedule A, general provisions of the bylaw. Be it resolved that zoning bylaw amendment 0301, a bylaw to amend the city of Summerside zoning bylaw, was read and declared as read a first time at the council meeting held on September 15th, 2025. And Schedule A is part of the package. It's 13 pages. I don't believe I need to read it out. It's available to anyone that would like to read it. Megan and Linda are there, so if anyone has any questions, I guess now would be the time. Otherwise, we'll continue on.
Great, thank you, Councillor. So Resolution COS 25-094, moved by Councillor Duran, seconded by Councillor Snow, is on the floor. Any further comments, questions, statements from members of council? Councillor Treno.
Sure, yeah, I'd just like to put a friendly motion on the floor, just to, I circulated a position paper to council, just I can briefly talk about it, but just put a motion on the floor to put that in the minutes.
Yeah, so accept it if you have, do you have paper, you have your
I
comments
have
and thoughts?
my copy, yes.
Yeah, if you can provide it to Sandra, that would be fine.
Okay, perfect.
Do you think you sent that around to council?
did,
So it'll
yes.
be in the package in the minutes.
Okay, sure. And just very briefly, I would support, there was a comment on the, I think the walkthrough comments that was provided by staff in terms of providing the option for council to add a medium daycare. I think in terms of with the changes that we are proposing without that option, we're down to up to 8 that could be in a residential, and where our bylaw currently says we can have up to 15. So in terms of looking at it just to mirror what we already have, and then we would look at, if council so approved that down the road, that would make sense based on childcare spaces and the need for childcare in the city. And then we would make a determination on what it would be permitted or discretionary at that point. And then I've also made comments in terms of the parking lot area and width in regards to an open door, any open door and window, which it's proposed that we delete that from the bylaws. But in terms of looking at from a pedestrian point of view, from a safety point of view, that's where I just have concerns that if it could be, and I in this document, I'd list a very small jurisdictional scan that I did, but they've kept that in many communities that I've found, looking at that. And I guess if we're looking at the city being the pedestrian friendly, having the parking lot right beside the entranceway is a concern for me. But that again, that's just my feedback, but it'll be in the minutes, so, good, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Council. So you're not proposing any specific amendments to the Schedule A? Oh, that would next stage is planning board?
For his.
Well, great, okay. Any further comments, questions, statements from members of council? Seeing, hearing none. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, the resolution is carried. Thank you, council. Next resolution, Councillor Duran.
COS 25095, moved by myself and seconded.
Sorry, I shut you off.
You monster. Okay. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Adams, whereas a zoning bylaw amendment 0301 was initiated by the city of Summerside to conduct a series of housekeeping amendments to Schedule A, general provisions of the bylaw. And whereas zoning bylaw amendment 0301, a bylaw to amend the city of Summerside zoning bylaw, was read and declared as read a first time at this council meeting, be it resolved that zoning bylaw amendment 0301, a bylaw to amend the city of Summerside zoning bylaw, be hereby referred back to the planning board for review and recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor. And who was the seconder again there?
Councillor Adams.
Adams, thank you. Resolution COS 25-095, moved by Councillor Duran, seconded by Councillor Adams, is on the floor. Further comments, questions, statements from members of council? Seeing, hearing none, we'll call for a vote. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, the resolution is carried. Thank you, Councillor. Oh, no. I've lost my sheet.
Next.
Where did it There it is. Page 1 of 188 is at page 88. All right, thank you. Moving on to next resolution, Councillor Duran again, item B.
Resolution COS 25096, moved by Councillor Trenholm and seconded by Councillor McColman. Whereas Jagtar Singh is requesting council approval in accordance with section 13 of the licensing bylaw, CS 21, to operate a mobile sales establishment, Hey Tandoori Grill, at 415 Sherbrooke Road. Property owner, Lockhart's Auto Service Limited. And whereas section 13 of the licensing bylaw provides that council shall allow or refuse an application based on the following considerations: safety, desirability, impact on established businesses in the city, public convenience, and such other considerations as it deems appropriate. Be it resolved that council grant approval to Jagtar Singh to operate a mobile sales establishment, Hey Tandoori Grill, at 415 Sherbrooke Road. Lockhart's Auto Service Limited property owner. The license is subject to the following conditions: paying a license fee of $500 for a local business as per licensing bylaw CS 21 regulations. A food health permit is approved by the province. Litter disposal containers are provided on site. Hours and days of operation are 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. daily. And connection of any pipe, hose, etc. to the city system requires city approval. This bears the recommendation of the planning board meeting held on September 15th, 2025.
Thank you, Councillor. And who's that moved and seconded by again?
Moved by Councillor Trenholm and seconded by Councillor McColman.
Thank you. Resolution COS 25-096, moved by Councillor Trenholm, seconded by Councillor McColman, is on the floor. Further comments, questions, statements from members of council? Seeing and hearing none, we'll call for a vote. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Resolution is carried. Councillor McDougall, item 9C, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have a resolution here dealing with the Canada Community Building Fund, formerly the gas tax. Moved by myself, second by Deputy Mayor Snow. Whereas the Government of Canada and the Province of Prince Edward Island renewed the Canada Community Building Fund, CCBF, agreement for another 10 years from 2024 to 2034. Whereas the municipal strategic component stream of this funding program has made the first priority project categories as water, wastewater, and projects that demonstrate that they will help alleviate housing-related infrastructure pressures. The funding contribution percentage calculates as 50%, with the remaining 50% being funded by the municipality. And whereas CCBF, the MSC stream, is open for application intake until October 3rd, 2025, and the Infrastructure Secretariat with the Province of PEI requires a council resolution to support the applications. Be it resolved, the council approves submitting applications to the CCBF MSC stream for water and sewer infrastructure replacement. And this bears the recommendation of the Finance Committee meeting of September 11th, 2025.
Thank you, Councillor McDougall. Resolution COS 25-097, moved by Councillor McDougall, seconded by Deputy Mayor Snow, is on the floor. Further comments, questions, statements from council? Seeing and hearing none, we'll call for a vote. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Resolution is carried. Councillor McDougall.
Yes, resolution COS 25-098, moved by myself and seconded by Deputy Mayor Snow. Whereas subsection 1524 of the Municipal Government Act states that council may authorize capital expenditures not included in the capital budget if the total does not exceed the amount authorized to be transferred from operating budget. The amount authorized to be borrowed under the subsection 164(3) of the or transferred from reserve fund. And whereas subsection 7.3 and 7.4 of the reserve bylaw, CS-9, requires withdrawals from the reserve fund to be approved by resolution of council if they are not part of the annual budget. Be it resolved that council approves a transfer from a reserve fund to offset the following unbudgeted capital expenditures: $500,000 for the asset purchase of the Curling and Marina complex, and a transfer from the reserve to offset capital expenditures that are over their budgeted amounts, $150,000 for boardwalk replacement and $150,000 for the Dome Court project. This resolution is made upon recommendation of the Finance Committee meeting held on September 11th, 2025. And again, this is coming from reserves.
Thank you, Councillor McDougall, and Chair of Finance. That is moved and seconded by?
Deputy Mayor Snow.
Great, thank you. Resolution COS 25-098, moved by Councillor McDougall, seconded by Deputy Mayor Snow, is on the floor. Further comments, questions, statements from members of council? Seeing and hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, the resolution is carried. Thank you, Council. Thank you, Councillor. Taking right along, 7:05. All right, we're into department reports. The first one up here is the mayor's report. I realized when I was looking at the package over the weekend that I started adding the mayor's report. I was away for the last couple of weeks. I don't have a whole lot to report on, but I did want to take a moment, one, to just read some of the comments that sent to council by memo of August 21st, 2025, and I just wanted to read them out to the public because, one, it highlights the amount of work, the incredible amount of work that all of you are doing, and I think it's good to share with members of the public. The upcoming 6 months will probably be the busiest of the 22 to 26 mandate. It also should be very rewarding as priorities move from implementation and others become reality. Your work in council and committee, and this is to you, council, this year has been moving Summerside forward. Your efforts will have a lasting positive impact, in many cases, for years to come. It remains a pleasure to work with you all and to keep getting things done here for Summerside. So thank you. The highlights and decisions and direction coming before council this fall include, but are not limited to, the hiring or appointment of a permanent CAO, the zoning bylaw housekeeping amendments, which we're on today, dealing with audited financial statements, taking consideration and discussion around significant projects such as the Eco Park and the tendering of the Fire Hall project, working on implementation details pursuant to our obligations under HAF and our housing reforms, addressing issues that are pertinent and timely with respect to our electric utility generation, transmission, and distribution infrastructure, not just for now, but for decades to come, and addressing some critically important policy items such as our debt servicing policy, and I know that work is almost through Finance Committee. In addition, you will be engaged on the operational service review and prioritization session, and that is being done both within the organization for the City of Summerside, a full organizational review for all staff, and there is a council component to that. And I know that stuff sometimes doesn't get the attention of the newspapers or the Facebook posts, but that is hard, grueling work, but that work pays incredible dividends to make sure that we're always looking at ourselves in the mirror to make sure we can do a better job, that we are questioning how we do things to make sure we don't get complacent, and doing that throughout the organization. And sort of a advanced thanks, one, to all the staff who are putting the work in now and are going to put the work in over a series of days, and to members of the public who may deal with, we'll try and make sure there isn't any service disruptions, as most of the city employees are engaged in that review, but we'll ask people to be patient. Council is also having a policy meeting and essentially a board meeting as wearing the other hats that this particular council wears that most councils across the region and certainly across the country do not, with respect to the electric utility, and I think that's coming up in the next couple of weeks, and we have our community safety town hall and stakeholder meetings. That is in addition to the policy recommendations that are coming from your committees and the usual matters that come before council from applicants in the normal course. This winter and spring, we will be turning to obviously our budget for 2026, our mandated 5-year review pursuant to the MGA of our official plan, secondary plans and committee recommendations from committees such as Downtown, Parks and Green Spaces, Community Safety, and others. Policy housekeeping items and consolidation of bylaws and city policies. And I know we've been discussing that, and we've got some great people working on a number of those pieces. And then the committee work implementation for the stuff that everyone's doing so much heavy lifting for right now. So that's not everything, but again, the purpose of the memo and why I wanted to read it out today is to prepare all of you and maybe myself as well, but also to let you and the public know that I'm working as hard as I can to balance your time. I recognize that your time is valuable and limited, and we are in these part-time, half-paid, half-volunteer IC positions in a community in what is a very difficult time to be in public office. There is no question. The scrutiny that public officials of all levels are facing today, and some of the threats and worse that we're seeing across not just North America but around the world. We are certainly in troubling times, so it is positive to see a group of people working hard together for a community that continues to just deliver incredible things for our residents. And I think we're a place that bucks the trend, and I'm really proud to be part of that with all of you. And we'll continue to work as an organization to deliver high quality and well considered recommendations to council and vice versa. I am personally excited by what's possible within the next 6 months, as I am excited by what we've accomplished so far. And I think right here that in the coming months, the mantra of if you want to get something done, give it to someone busy, will apply to all of us here at council and across the city. But there is a great light at the end of the tunnel, and I look forward to sharing it with all of you. So that's my report for our council meeting, whatever day it is today, September 15th, 2025. With that, move on to item 10B, which is Finance. Councillor McDougall. Councillor.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have a report here from Director Kristen McDonald. Good evening, colleagues and City Council and residents and businesses of the city. Our utility accounts receivable has unfortunately increased since our report in July, with a total past due of $223,700. Our total on the July report was $208,000. 26 accounts have a balance greater than 60 days past due of $50,500, which is 22.6% of the total past due. 6 accounts remain disconnected for non-payment and will not be reconnected until payment or satisfactory payment arrangements have been received. Attached to this report, you'll find our operating results for July 31st, 2025. A projection to March 31st, 2026 will be prepared when we report the second quarter results, and this will be more indicative of what our operating results will be for the fiscal year. Finance Committee met on September 11th, and here's an update on the work plan items. Debt management policy, a draft for the general tax fund, and a separate policy for the utilities have been prepared and were reviewed. These policies will be presented to council at a future meeting. 2, service level review. Staff are developing service inventories for the departments in preparation for sessions facilitated by Gordon McIntosh. These sessions being attended by staff and council are scheduled to be held in mid-October. We continue to work with our external auditors, Doane Grant Thornton LLP, on the 2024-25 year-end audit, and our 2024-25 financial statements will be presented to council in late September. Thank you for the opportunity to present this report, and either myself or Director of Finance are available to take your questions.
Thank you, Councillor. Seeing no questions right now, we'll move on to item 10C, Community Service and Tourism Representative, Councillor Trenholm. Councillor.
Great, thank you. This is just a summary. The full report can be found online. The Summerside Dome wrapped up with the Boys and Girls Club Camp in March, with participants enjoying daily excursions to Credit Union Place for bowling and swimming. Active Living Summerside offered a full slate of August programming, including Learn to Run 5K, a bike social, kettlebell workouts, and weekly activities at Leisure Park, capped off with the popular end of summer splash event. At the Confederation Bridge Aquatic Center, fall swimming lessons opened registration on August 16th, filling quickly with a total of 219 children enrolled. That's in the fall sessions, 147, and for the free preschool program, 45. The Convention Center hosted 15 events in August, on par with last year, with 340 new chairs being added and carpets being cleaned. And while the Oval saw steady use of class reunions with weddings and large conferences. Finally, the Ocean 100 box office season tickets for the Summerside Western Caps went on sale for this coming season, and the home opener is set for August 26th. Certainly hope to see everybody there, and there's a steady demand for tickets. And that's it, and thank you, Robbie Rankin, for your report.
Thank you, Councillor Trenholm. Questions from council? Seeing here none, we'll move on to 10D. Councillor McColman, Chair of Bylaw Governance and Representative for Government's HR and Legal Services. Councillor.
Thank you, Your Worship. Good evening, colleagues. The report has been prepared by Human Resources Director Kendra Gunn. Director Kendra Gunn, excuse me. With the pending retirement of the current incumbent, staff supported the process, or the posting process, for a development officer to replace the upcoming vacancy. An internal ad for an ice maker resulted in the hiring of Samantha Durant. Interviews were held for the communications coordinator position, and Daniel Cudmore, was hired, and Taylor Laird was hired as the new temporary Assistant Green Space and Parks Manager. So welcome to all three new staff members. Interviews were held for a 12-month temporary part-time administrative assistant to support administration and council, and Amanda Moffat was awarded the position. Interviews were held for a temporary aquatics manager to replace an upcoming maternity parental leave. Barbara Lee Hickey has been hired, and we extend best wishes to Megan Colvin Daly, well, with the upcoming addition to her family. Interviews for the deputy police chief were held, and the position was awarded to Dale Corish. Congratulations to Deputy Corish. Following the recent graduation ceremonies at the Atlantic Police Academy, the city welcomed police constables Reed Macbeth, Donovan Falcon, and Caleb Snow to Summerside Police Services as the new step in their fulfillment of the cadet sponsorship program. Staff facilitated the hiring of numerous casual laborers, seasonal staff, lifeguards, and customer service representatives who are now working at the Credit Union Place and Dome. And the staff attended the monthly Josh, I believe, can somebody help me with that? Joint Occupational Health and Safety. I don't see that all the time. Meeting, and CAO meeting, and the City Hall subcommittee meeting. First aid risk assessments were completed for all departments. Corresponding first aid kits for all departments were ordered and distributed. Staff-led orientations for several new staff. Department staff presented the results of the staff engagement survey to directors. Work is being done to create a presentation that will be shared with all staff. With summer wrapping up, staff are working on records of employment for the summer students and gathering their paperwork to submit final claims for their funding. Staff continue to work with Blue Cross representatives to fix some minor setup issues with the installation of the new program for our staffing. Auditors were here in August, and staff assisted with payroll and pension reports and answered questions. Staff liaised with the city's pension plan custodian in response to questions from staff and pensioners. The department continued working with various city departments and external legal counsel in support of the city's staffing, HR needs, and legal matters involving reviewing contracts, leases, and supporting legal work involving civil claims on behalf of and against the city and attending hearings. Finally, the department worked with the grant proposal and policy writer and external legal counsel on the policy and bylaw review process. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Councillor McColman. Any questions? Hearing none, Councillor Morrison is not here. Did Councillor Morrison ask any member of council to read in his monthly report? Does not look like it. With that, I'll just note that the monthly report is in the minutes, and it is brief. Then we'll move along. Councillor Cameron, Arts, Culture, and Diversity Representative.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you to Director Lori Ellis for this report. The following report captures some highlights of Culture Summerside's activity from August to the mid-September time period. The August to September 2025 period continues to be busy with tourists visiting our cultural sites and taking museum tours. We currently have one remaining summer staff who is helping cover the demand, and she will be done at the end of September. From that point on, permanent full-time staff will be handling those tours. The McNaught History Center and Archives is undergoing some updates this month and will result in a newly refinished exhibit space and reading, research, and media room. The first exhibit is for this new space is set to go from October to the January period, and it is called Sugar Rush. It will correlate well with the diverse holiday programming, and more details will come soon. The thousands of small artifacts at the Bishop Machine Shop have been packed up and repositioned for an exhibit. Track lighting and didactic information, which I don't know what didactic information means, but it sounds very fancy, have been added for the interpretive purposes. The Bishop Machine Shop will be open to the public the evening of October 16th, so the community can get a glimpse into its new Spring Street location. There's a couple pictures of the current process going on in the shop there in the report. Our 5-star reviews on TripAdvisor is a testament to the quality of our city's cultural tourism product being offered to the visitors. The White House Museum is classified as a Traveler's Choice Award winner in 2025. And grant writing is underway for next year's programs and festivals. And lastly, one of my favorite things that happen in the city, I think I say it every year, is the 25th annual Historic Ghost Walk is scheduled for Thursday, October 16th at 6:30 p.m. to 8 p.m. The program takes visitors on a guided tour of historic Summerside to hear the true stories of Halloween and the darker side of island history. Tickets must be pre-purchased to confirm tour times. The tickets are $10 and children under 6 are free and must be paid for when booked. If any member of council is interested in attending, contact Culture Summerside to arrange your times, because this sells out very quickly. And that is the report. Thank you.
Councillor Cameron, thank you. Councillor Adams.
In the interest of us all learning something tonight, I looked up didactic, Nick, and it's intended to teach and particularly to have instruction as an ulterior motive. So I had no idea. I thought it might have been
I'm not going to ask you to use it in a sentence, Councillor. You just reread it. Thank you, Councillor Cameron, and we're also looking forward to your garage opening for one day a year for great festivities around Halloween. Excellent. Item, 10G, Technical Services, Representative Councillor Dorana, Chair Planning Board.
Thank you, Your Worship. The 2025 construction season is progressing well. Most of our capital projects are underway and several are already complete. For paving, a large section of Water Street East is still to be finished. The storm line on Upper Granville and the forced main replacement near the Red Bridge, which is no longer red, are complete. Water main work is done on parts of Ottawa and Harvard Streets and continues on other sections as well as on Lafergie Avenue and Manson Court. Well upgrades are happening at the Wilmot Wellfield and on South Drive. Sewer work is completed on Calhoun, Cambridge and part of Water Street East, and with South Drive still in progress. And boardwalk replacement work is also ongoing. We have a city map outline showing all project locations, and it is updated regularly as work continues on our website. And on the planning side, staff are actively working with developers. In August, 19 building permits were issued with a value of $4.6 million, bringing the year-to-date total to 124 permits worth over $31 million. These included new single-family and semi-detached homes, commercial alterations, and one 10-unit apartment building. The east-west housing corridor remains on track for roadwork completion by the end of September. The connection points will be signalized once the traffic poles which were ordered in January. Whoever was looking ahead, thank you, as soon as those arrive. And finally, I'd encourage residents to reach out to staff if you're considering a project this fall. Now is a great time to get the process started. So, yeah, thank you, and thank you to Aaron McDonald, the Director of Technical Services, for preparing the report this month.
Thank you, Councillor Ron. Any further questions from council? Councillor Adams?
It just says, a large section of Water Street East is still to be done. Do we have a timeline on that? I was of the impression that we were doing it and then going into the corridor, east-west housing corridor, but it looks like we did the opposite, so I was just wondering if we have a timeline on when that's being started.
Question for Councillor Duran or CAO?
Do you know? I wasn't aware of the project schedule doing it the way you described, Councillor, but that the plan is to complete the base layer of the east-west housing corridor this week and then move to Water Street East as early as next week if all goes well. But we're still waiting for an updated project schedule from Kern and Briggs at the moment. So hopefully we'll know sooner rather than later because we do want to pull comms in to start working on the traffic notices. And we have our comms team here tonight so they can take note of that as well.
Yes, because we're gonna have the east-west housing corridor, Water Street, Reed's Corner, and there's going to be, and the province is responsible for construction at Reed's Corner, just like everybody to know that, that's an important one. As well as the province is responsible for the construction when they do a right turn lane into Perry subdivision leaving Summerside. So that's all to happen yet too, so it's gonna be a show, for sure.
It's going to be smooth in the spring.
Yeah,
It's
smooth.
going to be nice.
Go,
It's going to be real nice
Go the
in the
roundabout
spring.
until it's over.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor, and great that it's noted for the comms team. Item 10H, Economic Development and Growth, Deputy Mayor Snow.
Thank you, Your Worship. The following is a brief update from the Economic Development Office. The full report is in the package if you want to see it online. Follow-up activities are actively underway with a number of promising investment leads generated through recent trade missions and inbound business delegations. These leads span several high-potential sectors, including clean technology, manufacturing, agri-tech, and logistics. To maintain engagement and forward momentum, department staff are coordinating a range of investor support services. These include the organization of virtual site tours, preparation and delivery of detailed due diligence packages, and consultation on available incentives and supports. Mother's Property redevelopment, next steps. The redevelopment strategy for former Mother's Properties continues to progress. The department is currently collaborating with the selected proponent to move forward with the realization of their proposed redevelopment concept and finalize the development agreement. Eco Building. The Eco Building is now approaching the final stages of construction with substantial completion expected within the coming weeks. Preparation for occupancy, the department is in advanced lease negotiations with one prospective tenant in partnership with Innovation PEI. And just some general notes. Since last month's report, the office served 45 clients on a wide range of topics, including business directory support, space inquiries, labor issues, investment opportunities, downtown activity, communications, expansion plans, integration, corporate calling, real estate trends, and development regulations. In recent weeks, we've hosted several business guests who are either considering locating in Summerside or expanding their investment here. These visits have helped showcase our major projects, infrastructure strengths, renewable energy goals, and ongoing growth. Conversations with these prospects are continuing. This concludes the monthly report for the Economic Development Office. Thank you to Mike Thatuska for completing it.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Snow. Questions, comments from council there? Councilor McColeman?
I just wondered, Deputy Mayor Corey, just if you had heard any comments about the Classic Car Nights, downtown Summerside Classic Car Nights, because it's received a lot of public recognition, and I just wondered if you did.
Yeah, I think all of council have probably heard how positive people view that in a sort of the heart of our downtown, and the number of people brings the last night. They had cars parked basically all over downtown onto Heather Moyes Drive, et cetera. There wasn't enough space to get people in there, so it continues to be a very positive event for downtown in relation to getting people out and into the downtown core. So Robert and their crew do a great job of organizing it week after week, and we thank them for their work.
There was some tourists that were here with the ball tournament, Carter
Yeah,
Cup, and they were so impressed that that was in downtown free, the large crowds of people, a number of YouTubes on it.
Yeah.
And I think an article in a maritime magazine, so
Yeah,
pretty lucky.
we support, do a sponsorship for Classic Car Nights through the hotel, and we have a little like sandwich board out front that we put out every Friday, so the guests that are coming to Summerside know that that event's happening in downtown. So we hear it quite a bit from people visiting Summerside, of course, but it's definitely a great event that's well attended.
Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Snow. Move on to 10I, Emergency Services and Communications Representative, Councillor Adams.
Thank you, Your Worship. For fire services, and this is sent in by Ken Culleton. During the month, firefighters responded to 51 calls, 5 medical first responder calls, 45 silent alarms, and 1 general alarm. Training, firefighters took part in 120 hours of training in August alone. That was including rope rescue training, first aid, CPR, and pump testing. Besides other issues we deal with during an extremely dry summer, here are a few that have elevated the call volume to its highest in the last 3 years. All while there have been complete burning restrictions for PEI in place since August 7th, and that's in place right now until September 22nd. Mulch fires, 8, grass fires, 2, and outdoor fire violations, 12. So that's it for, and just to remind people, like, we all know there's a fire burn. That's common knowledge by now. You just have to walk outside to realize that we're in a drought. But those 12 especially, like the mulch fires, grass fires, that could be accidental, things happen. But the outdoor fire violations, that's just plain and simple wasting the time of our volunteers. So that's taking them away from their family, their jobs, and not to mention the danger that it could cause. So that's a pretty disappointing number for sure. Did you want to say something on that one?
Sort of, yeah.
Yeah.
Just as a point of clarification, and I don't know if this stat is built into that 12, but I know over the last couple of months, we've been called out, like at night for outdoor fire violations where somebody passing by would see a fire and report it. And a couple of those, at least that I'm aware of, we've gone in and it's been appropriate, like it's been okay. It's been like a propane fireplace and it's fine to continue. So I don't know if those okay instances are built into the 12.
Yeah, it says violations, so I
Yeah.
was just assuming that it must have been not the propane table type ones that we allow. And I know people are curious. I know people have, called me or messaged me and said, like, is this allowed or is that allowed? And then I just, off to Chief Ron and ask his expertise on it. But Ron? Bruce?
Yeah, it's nice to see that medical first responder calls down. It was 11 in July and 5. I think hopefully that letter that was sent by municipalities, not only ourselves but other ones, is a reason for that. So thank you.
That's awesome. If there's no other ones, I'll go into Summerside Police Services. Calls for service remained high, as they do usually in the months of July and August. As mentioned earlier by Councillor Norma, the deputy chief search was completed, and Dale Kors was appointed as the new deputy chief. Summerside Police Service issued an emergency alert on July 23rd, and this is just a little late because we didn't have the meeting in August, in relation to an armed and dangerous person who was wanted by the RCMP for 2 gun-related incidents. On the morning of July 23rd, it was determined that the suspect was in Summerside. Through investigation, it was determined that the suspect was in the eastern end of Summerside, and the alert was subsequently issued for part of the city. Thanks for the coordinated effort between agencies and reported sightings from the public, the suspect was safely arrested and remains in custody on numerous charges. Summerside Police Services would like to formally thank the public for their assistance in this matter and for their ongoing support of the police service. And I think a good thing that came out of that, if anything, was the alerts. People, that was sort of an interesting one that they know they have to, the province has to work some kinks out of too, because a lot of people, we have a lot of cell phone issues right now with reception. And a lot of people, that's their only phone, like myself included, no more home line, and they weren't getting the alerts. So it was pretty bothersome for some people, especially those living alone. I know I have a whole area of Crozier that faces ADL, and the new area where our snow apartments are, that there's a dead zone through there. So, and there's a tower right there. So it goes to show you, it really doesn't matter. And also the police services participate in a number of community events, including the Lobster Carnival Parade and the Summerside Pride Walk, and they're always happy to participate when they can. That's it.
Thank you, Councillor Adams. Any further questions for Councillor Adams? Seeing none, we will adjourn our regular meeting here. We will move into an in-camera session, which is a full in-camera session, so that is only council and CAO. And we'll do that in, try and get that done in 4 or 5 minutes. Thanks, everyone.